Be sure to check out my Patreon for weekly exclusive interviews, extra content on Veve and Ecomi, and building generational wealth, as well as money management tips from experienced whales. Yo, what's going on, y'all? I'm Cavell Anderson, and we're back with another Veve and Ecomi video. In this one, we're going to be looking at a comparison between Veve and Ecomi and basically the early days of Amazon and how it's actually grown into and become what it is today. So this is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen much of it yet. I watched a little bit at the beginning, and I like basically the track that the video was going on. So I think that this is important. I think that it's important to really have all the information, get as much facts as you possibly can, because the truth of the matter is, if you're here to make a lot of money, it's not a lot of experienced investors in this community, and they're definitely not the vocal ones. Most of us, like, we're calm. We don't care. Like, I make videos and I talk about these things to help give you all my perspective. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. I'd never give financial advice, but I can tell you all what I've experienced, what I've been through, in my mindset. Whether you adopt that type of mindset, something similar, or you do a little bit more research and add to it and become even stronger mentally. Like, what you do with the information is completely up to you. But I don't want anyone to be able to say, like, once things actually go to where they're going, oh, I didn't know. You did. You just didn't believe. And you didn't believe because you didn't do enough research. You didn't do enough work. And that's what happens in life. You don't put enough effort into yourself. You don't put enough effort into the things that can really change your life forever, because you think that you know everything. You think that and then by the time you learn, it's too late. This is just the cycle of life. Everyone makes these mistakes. And when you've done this time and time and time again in investing, you learn a thing or two. And that's why I don't make the same mistakes. You see a lot of the other content creators who people call moon boys don't make the same mistakes. It's just experience. Like, you can keep repeating the same cycle forever, or you can get tired of yourself and be like, yo, I am better than this. I'm supposed to be farther along than this. I'm supposed to be somewhere else right now. And you can really start to do the work. You can really start to put in that effort. I mean, it's very easy to half-ass your way through life. But yeah, that being said, enough preaching. Hopefully you all have been well, man. I definitely appreciate all the love and support as always. Drop that thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And let's jump into the video, y'all.
All right, let's start off on the Amazon side. So first thing I want to do, guys, is compare the early day stock price of Amazon to the early day stock, or not stock price, but token price of Ecomi. So looking on the left-hand side is going to be the history of Amazon's stock price. So all the way down at the bottom, 1998 had a stock price of 78 cents starting the year, and then the following year moved all the way up to $3.45. Now, one thing.
Sound familiar? Sound familiar about the initial start of the company, then a blow up? Now let's watch.
Moving into 2000 and 2001, you're going to see that Amazon had a huge crash. So from 1999 moving into 2000, their stock price dropped 80%, and then an additional 30% moving into 2001. Now,
so a startup starts off going crazy. It goes down, it goes up, and then falls again. Like, and what's interesting about this is that people don't take into consideration the fact that Veve is building within a new space that doesn't have rules. It doesn't have standards. It doesn't really have anything yet. It's still being built. So people are setting all these expectations for what Veve should be doing, basing it on things that aren't stable itself. Like the way that the current NFTs are appreciated, adopted, and used. People are saying that, oh, if Veve is not doing it the way that everybody else is doing it, they're wrong. Who says that everyone else is not wrong? Like, this is the IP that matters. These are the brands that matter. These are the brands that hold significant value. So if this is the way these brands are choosing to move about it, who's to say that that's wrong? The thing is, people are setting a standard by inferior projects. I don't care how much somebody is willing to pay for a JPEG. It's not as valuable as something from Marvel. It's not as valuable from something as something from DC. It's not as valuable as Jurassic Park. It's not as valuable as any of the biggest brands in human history. I don't care what someone has been willing to pay for it. Now, can you make more money in some of this stuff? Yeah, but to be fair, you can make a lot of money doing some illegal stuff as well. Like, you can make a lot of money doing a lot of questionable things. Like, it's harder to make money, like, and I don't want to make this a illegal type of thing, because it's not that. It's just different. Like, the alternative methods tend to lead certain people to great results. That's just the way that it is. Like, everybody else wouldn't try to hack Veve and try to scam using bots and stuff like that. But I mean, it's kind of profitable if that's your thing, that's what you're into. Now, everybody who bots is not going to make the same money, but some people who bot, like, they're going to make that type of money. Like, it's just that's just the way that life is, man. But learning and understanding the right way and the proper way, and being able to replicate what you're doing and not be breaking laws and things like that. I think that it's important to fully understand and get the full picture of what's going on in this space. It's a developing space. It's not established yet. So all these rules that people are putting on Veve's NFTs, oh, this is not a real NFT for this reason. What a real NFT is barely defined yet. So anybody falling in the trap of, oh, it's so many other better NFT projects, you sound crazy. Like, you sound mentally crazy saying that there's better NFT projects than the biggest brands in human history. Because what other security in the NFT space do you have outside of the biggest brands in human history that has tens of thousands of lawyers to help defend them, their assets, your assets, and your best interest? Because best believe what's in the best interest of these companies is for you to be a happy customer. So yeah, you might these companies understand what it means to build a business. So while they understand that Veve is going to take time. So people upset, oh, I'm not rich yet, they don't care about that. But if Veve was actually doing something that was shaky or questionable, best believe these companies would care and they would do something about it. But it's nothing damaging to the IP. They're just building a new space and people won't take the time to understand. And the companies get that. So yeah, just some food for thought.
Now, one thing I want to note as well is if you look down again at 1999, their all-time high up until this point, which was $3.45. It took them nearly a decade, or nearly 10 years, all the way up to 2008 for them to break that all-time high. Their new all-time high now $3.49, and then you're going to notice that moving forward into 2009, 10, 11, and so on, their stock price just continues to increase. So if we head over to the Omi token now, what you're going to notice is some very similar price patterns early on. So for those of you guys wondering why there's two charts on screen here, it's because the token was migrated from the GoChain blockchain over to the Ethereum blockchain and is now an ERC20 token. Happened a little while back, but that's why you see two on screen here. So looking at the left chart, what you're going to notice is there was an influx of investors in the Omi token back in March of 2021. So token hits an all-time high, and then what you're going to notice is it drops now over the course of the next year and a half, now moving into 2 years, I guess.
And by the way, I should also point out that the Omi token is deflationary. That's where things differ as well. Omi token is deflationary, which means that the sooner they start adding use cases, the sooner they start making the Omi token usable and desirable, that's when things change and it can exponentially grow outside of stocks and things like that. Like, the fact that it's deflationary is a big deal, especially if the Omi token is as impactful and huge as they've advertised and marketed that it's going to be. Now, if Veve itself, the Veveverse and things like that, Veve related products could really push this to the next level. But if they take it a step further and start getting the Omi token used by big games and big brands and big names and other projects and stuff like that, that really just speeds up and boosts the potential of the Omi token. But I mean, it really just comes down to the strategy that they're going to go for there. But it's in their best interest that the Omi token performs well, for multiple different reasons, and for us is one of them. Like, it's important to really understand what's going on and not just follow all the FUD. There's a lot of FUD. You'll always be able to find somebody to say something negative. It's not common for you to find somebody who knows what they're talking about. Like, it's not. People are just emotional. It's a lot of emotion in investing, which it shouldn't be. It should just be straight, pure logic. That's it.
So Amazon didn't just issue their IPO and then all of a sudden grow into the company that they grew into, right? They issued their IPO, they had an influx of users, they hit an all-time high, and then right after hitting that all-time high and having that influx of users, their stock price crashes 110%. So if we move back over to Veve and the Omi token, you're going to see the same thing. There was that influx of investors back in March, the token hits an all-time high, and then crashes 80 to 90% over the course of the next 2 years.
And why would something do that? Like, when you think about Amazon and what it's done, it's easy to have faith in that early on, right? It's easy to have faith in what Amazon is doing because it sounds good. It sounds like it makes sense. But then, like, during a bear market, when things start going down, how are you going to start thinking? Do people really want stuff delivered? Do people really want to be able to order online and things like that? Like, I can imagine how people were thinking at that point in time, because it's not today where, you know, damn near everything gets delivered to you. You really see the vision. You're living in the vision, so it's easy to see it. With Veve, you're not living in the vision. They've done nothing yet. They've done nothing but secure the biggest brands and start releasing some nice product. They haven't even really started what Veve is all about, which is the experience. I mean, yeah, we have a little bit of augmented reality, but the experience comes in the form of the Viviverse, the utility for these NFTs. What are you doing with these NFTs and what makes them valuable? That's what Vivi is all about. So Vivi as a business, it hasn't even begun, in my opinion. It has barely begun. Like recreating stuff that's already existed, or doing a little bit of your own creations of some of the major brands in the world. While yes, it's historic, it's not actually doing anything. All you're doing is regurgitating content from big brands. And while that is valuable because it's the first time in human history it's ever been done, that is not what Vivi is about. Vivi is much more valuable than just what's on it. Well, I guess it's in conjunction with their plans for the utility and stuff that's going to be tied to it and the metaverse. So yeah, it's deeper. It's much deeper than people like to make it.
Now, I completely understand that these are two different businesses, two different business models, two different timelines, different catalysts affecting these prices. But one thing to note is that both of these companies had an influx of users right out of the gate, right? Largely from word of mouth, might I add. They hit an all-time high. Their prices crashed over the next couple of years. And then it took some time for Amazon to gain some traction, the same position that we're in as investors in the Veve project right now. Now the team is focused on patching holes during the recession and during this bear market, and really setting the business up for the best possible position for when the market regains traction.
And actually, Jeff Bezos at one point in time talked about one of the big drops from Amazon, and he explained how even when it dropped, the business was doing better than ever. And that's what's interesting. People don't realize that Veve is setting itself up for the future. It's setting itself up for something big and massive that's going to change the world. People want all this current happiness and current money and things like that, not realizing this project is not about that. So if you're coming in here for short-term gains, of course you're going to be disappointed, you're going to be mad, you're going to be lost, confused, you're going to think this is a bad project because you're looking at all these other projects that's only going to survive in the short term. You haven't seen another project with 30-year potential, 30, 40, 50, 100-year potential. You have not seen that before. You haven't seen that in this NFT space. Veve is the first. So when you think about that, you have to take into consideration, it's going to take some time for it to actually go to where it's going to go and to develop into what it's going to develop. People compare Veve's NFTs to a bunch of assets that don't need to be protected because it was nothing when it started and it's being built into something now. Like these brands are already something when they first come out, and they're going to be built into something even greater than they already are. Like that's the difference here. Veve has assets worth protecting. These other projects, they're not really worth protecting. I don't care how valuable they are. The IP is nothing worth protecting right now. The IP only exists because of how they're selling and things like that. The IP is only big because of the fact that they can move freely and put them in wallets and make people feel like they own something. That's the only reason that there's value there. Veve's assets has value for true reasons and stuff that has passed the test of time already. These other NFT projects don't. So no matter how much money people make right now, don't fall for the oh, this is how it's supposed to be done. If Veve don't do it this way, the project's a failure. That makes no sense. It really logically just makes no sense. Most of the other projects, like they are unprovable, and there's no proven history. There's nothing tied to it that makes you think people are going to want these in the long run. How much utility can you have with a Bored Ape? Like after a while, like how many years of getting into exclusive parties? How many years before that's boring? How many like what else can you do? Like what else is there when it comes down to that? Because it's not like it's a crazy brand. It's not like it's an augmented reality. It's not like it's anything special. It's a freaking picture. They're pictures of random stuff. How long until it's born? Especially with the attention span of the world today. This is all stuff you got to take into consideration. And yeah, you may make some money in the short term with this stuff by the people who are uneducated on the fact that, yo, this is not going to last and it's not sustainable. But for a true investor willing to wait your 5, 10 plus years, for people who are using this project as a retirement and you're not too old to be waiting 10 years and stuff like that, this is probably as good as it gets in my opinion. But yeah, that's just me.
And we can start seeing more and more adoption. All right, so moving back over to the Amazon side of things, we have a little snippet of a shareholders letter that Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, wrote to shareholders during the 2000 and 2001 crash that Amazon had. In it, he wrote, "In the short term, the stock market is a voting machine. In the long term, it's a weighing machine." The entrepreneur said in 1999, which was a boom year, that there was a lot of voting going on, but not as much weighing. We're a company that wants to be weighed, and over time we will be. Over the long term, all companies are. In the meantime, we have our heads down working to build a heavier and heavier company. Now, Couple things to dissect here. The second sentence, where the entrepreneur said that there was a lot of voting going on, but not as much weighing, that reminds me of the current FUD in the community. You have a lot of uneducated and beginner investors who got in early on this project who didn't fully understand the scope of the project.
And when people say that a lot of these people are uneducated and beginners, like, it's not about disrespect. We've all done it. This is where we start. We come in projects like this not understanding, passionate about it, but thinking that more should be done because we don't understand business. Like, what we mean is that you have to get out there, start a business. You have to start doing stuff. You have to start making money on your own and stop trying to depend on just Veve to really change your life. Because yes, it has the ability to, but you're never going to make it through if you don't understand that business takes time. You're in the business world right now. And if you don't understand that you're in a business world, you're in the licensing world, which is super slow. You're in the development world and tech world, which is super slow. You're in all these worlds that take time. And then cryptocurrency, NFTs with no regulation, and we don't even know when they're going to be more mainstream. It's just so many unknowns and uncertainties, and so many different businesses and communities and different technologies still being built without a solid foundation. If you can't factor all this stuff in, you're not ready to be an investor. But some people have the stomach for it though. Some people have the stomach to, okay, I don't fully understand this, but I'm going to hold this for 10 years. And that's what it is. This is money that I don't need right now. I'm not expecting it back right now. And if something unexpected happens before 10 years, congratulations. Like that's great for you. But really understand a proper timeline for when you should be expecting results. If you can't do that yet, nothing wrong with it. But don't have these expectations that's unrealistic because you simply choose not to educate yourself. That's when it gets bad. That's when it gets bad. And a lot of people are following people like that because if who would you rather follow? The guy who's going to tell you what it is and that it's more than likely a 10-year wait, or the guy who's going to tell you, you're going to be rich next year? Like, I would want to believe I'm going to be rich next year off this project, but the chances of that actually happening are very slim. Yes, anything can happen. Yes, some crazy Dogecoin pump could happen and we could see something unexpected, but I wouldn't bank my whole life savings on a Dogecoin type explosion with this. It's just not something that I would do. So it's much more important to have a strong exit strategy and have a strong plan and understanding of what you're investing in.
I mean, you even had a group of people who got in not knowing that you couldn't cash out. You know, you have a lot of prejudgment towards Veve at the very beginning. You have a lot of people coming in to try and make a quick buck. A lot of people who didn't do the proper due diligence behind their investment. But on top of those beginner investors, you also have a mix of uneducated investors right now who just don't fully understand business in general. And so some of the moves that Veve are making, people are criticizing without realizing that they're smart moves. And then the second point I want to bring up here is going to be the last part, which is, we're a company that wants to be weighed, and over the time, we will be over the long term. All companies are. In the meantime, we have our heads down, working to build a heavier and heavier company.
What does that sound like? We're a company that wants to be weighed over time. Long term, all companies are. This sounds like a company that knows the value of sticking around and longevity. What about these other NFT projects promising everything tomorrow? Like, what about these other, like, these companies have not passed the test of time, nor is there any clear reason for them to pass the test of time. Veve has that reason. Veve has those connections. Veve has that network. What has a network? What has the machine behind it? You got to really start to really weigh in on the best investments and what it means to really invest in something. If this is the road that you want to choose to start building your wealth. Because things that's obvious is that these brands that's tied to nothing, no type of historical significance or anything outside of what people were willing to pay for them during a boom where people thought that all JPEGs was valuable. If that's what you're looking at, if that's what you're looking for in the NFT space, that's not the NFT space is so much more than that. It's so much deeper than just a JPEG. And the more that you understand that, the more silly you'll think that it is comparing Veve to these other projects that's just inferior. It'll never be able to light a match to Veve's potential and where Veve has the ability to go. It's just it never.
That reminds me of a response that David gave during the most recent decon. He was asked a question by someone who pretty much asked him, what was the biggest lesson you've learned since starting Veve? And David's response, in summary, was the way that we run Veve nowadays is much different than the way that we used to. He said that the way that they used to was, the community might bring up several issues or complaints towards something, and the team would end up trying to tackle all of those issues at once and end up finding that they don't really get much done at all. What he pretty much said was the way that they run the company nowadays is, they'll still get several issues or complaints coming in, but the team needs to determine whether those issues are of, more importance than what they're currently working on. Understanding that what they're currently working on is also going to benefit the community. In terms of the whole, we have our heads down working to build a heavier and heavier company, that's pretty much what this team is doing right now, is they're focusing on patching as many holes as possible during this bear market. We have KYC, we have payout, we have MTL, and then we're also getting MCP and OUP coming up.
And Veve is definitely building a heavier and heavier company. The more things that gets added, the more partnerships, the more deals, like it just gets heavier and heavier, and they can just do that on the side of the brands that they're bringing in. Now when we get into the point where utility starts to take over the world and stuff like that, that's a whole nother ball game. That's a whole nother league for where Veve has the ability to go. Like I said, I believe in the future, at some point in time, we're going to have entire departments of Apple, Amazon, all these places, Disney, like they're going to have whole departments focused on utility. They're going to have whole departments creating new forms of utility, thinking of great things to do to boost the value of their digital NFT assets. That is just like that's the most logical thing for these businesses to do, because these NFT assets stand to make them more money than most of what they're currently doing and working on with their main business. So this is where the money is going to be made in the future. Utility is going to be king, because that is what's going to make these companies money, which means it's in their best interest to market, advertise, and make utility king. They need this stuff to constantly be selling. And that is what's going to make these companies start to really go to the next level and make insane amounts of money. So, I mean, mark my words, utility will be king. I like it. That's just what it is, in my opinion. But yeah, I could be wrong.
Now, another point that I want to bring up, or similarity here, is that Amazon did start by selling books. For those of you guys who don't know, they started as a bookstore online. And Veve started with one category as well, which was digital collectibles. So before I get into that, there is one difference that I want to bring up. And the reason why I'm bringing up a difference between these two companies,
I would say, like, he focused on the collectibles. I would say NFTs in general. Like, Veve started with NFTs in general. That's the smallest aspect of what this company is trying to do and trying to accomplish. It's like they're trying to do things with their NFTs and the experience around the NFTs, and have digital land and so many other categories and things to buy. And within a metaverse, like I always say this, but within a metaverse, you can create your own Amazon within that metaverse, where we've seen it in Ready Player One already, where you buy something in the metaverse and it gets shipped to your house in real life. So that is the extent that this metaverse can go to if they take it there. Now, it may not be something that you can see and wrap your head around right now, but that's definitely the future that we're heading towards.
These guys, is because I do actually think that this is a positive thing for Veve. So what I want to talk about here is how Amazon started at the very, very beginning of the Web 2 phase, the same way that Veve is starting at the very, very beginning of the Web 3 phase. So before I start explaining this, you guys got to understand the difference between Web 1, 2, and 3. So Web 1 is going to be, your standard web pages back in the day that were online. You could access facts, information, do your research, but you couldn't interact with the article in any way, shape, or form. You couldn't like it, you couldn't share it. It was just simply for reading purposes only. Then you had the whole Web 2 phase, which did introduce the participation and contribution, liking, sharing posts, and we're talking about all the social forums, right? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, all of these platforms. And now we're moving into that Web 3 phase, which has a focus on decentralization, openness, and better user utility. So things like VR, AR, and you have the whole metaverse talk, right?
And I'm going to have a video up coming soon about decentralization in Veve and how we actually get there and what it's going to look like. Because there's always going to be some form of protection and centralization, but at the same time, these are all assets that's designed to be decentralized. And it's just another outlook on what it could mean to be decentralized, like really, because because everyone's not just going to start jumping into the crypto NFT space and getting wallets and all this complicated stuff to an average person. This needs to be something that anybody can easily jump into. So there's going to be new technologies that rise up and makes Web3 easier to navigate. But the difficult, like, I like to think of the current state of the crypto space and the NFT space, I like to think of it like the old computers where people were using the command line and thought that that's how it was always going to be, when nowadays you can just click an app on the desktop and it opens right up. That's the difference between then and now. And that's what I think is going to be the same thing here in the NFT space. Like, people are thinking that, oh, this command line is everything. That's not going to work for an average consumer for the long term and for a scale. So it's going to become a lot more simpler. So yeah, I mean, you just got to look at what things are going to be in the future when you're investing, not what things are right now. You have to have vision past what we're currently seeing.
So when you look at Amazon started at the very, very beginning of the whole Web 2 phase. They relied largely on word of mouth when they first started. And again, for those who didn't know or forgot, they started as an online bookstore, only selling books, okay, before they started adding categories. Now, the same thing on the Veve side of things. They're starting, instead of Web 2, at the very beginning of the Web 3 phase. And just like Amazon started by selling one category, books, Veve started by selling one category, which was digital collectibles. Now, the reason why I'm pointing out the difference between the Web 2 and Web 3, and the reason why I think this is an advantage to Veve, is because Veve already has the infrastructure of Web 2 in place. So picture Amazon back in the day, they didn't have social platforms. They had to rely strictly on word of mouth, and then they also had to rely on traditional forms of advertising. Whereas Veve can leverage platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Discord to build their brand further and to reach a broader audience at a faster rate as well.
Yep, and they have partners with insane reaches like Disney with tens of millions of fans that just at their disposal, which they're not calling on right now because they can't handle that type of growth. Like, don't sleep on that. Don't sleep on the fact that Disney at any moment can push the button, and it's in their best interest to push the button because it's an influx of money as soon as they do. People act like Disney ain't got their hand on that button. It's crazy.
So now that the infrastructure is in place, we have these platforms, it allows a company like Veve, who is a company focused on the digital space, to grow faster and arguably larger than companies that existed in the Web 2 era. Now, the same way that Amazon grew, by adding categories after starting off with books, if you look at their logo, right, you got the arrow pointing from A to Z. That's to symbolize that you can pretty much search anything in the alphabet and find it on Amazon. The same way that they added categories is the exact same way that Veve can do the same to the app, right? So as things like music and short films, talk about music, you already have audio clips on the app, right? Lenticular cards. For short films, you have IP like Marvel and Disney on the app. Podcasts, experiences. There's
movies. Like, think about how movies is going to change and impact things. Because I actually was just buying like some shows on Netflix or whatever, or no, it was Amazon Plus. And yeah, like, imagine moving into a future where when you buy one of those, you're not buying it from Amazon anymore. You're buying it from somebody else who owned it and who doesn't want that movie anymore. So now you're selling your version of it to somebody else and vice versa. So imagine being able to buy movies and buy things and have true ownership of it, and then being able to sell those things. And there's not just everything's just not unlimited anymore. Everything is more limited and has more value. And it's just, you're really included. The people are more so included in exchanging things throughout this Web3 era. Like, it's going to be in companies' best interest to do that, because at certain points, these movies always stop selling. These movies always stop selling when there's just an infinite amount. Like, you can, if anybody can just buy it on Amazon, at some point they're going to stop buying it. Everybody's going to have it or whatever. But what doesn't stop happening is all those sales from people who, if somebody's looking for this, they can buy it from someone else, and then Amazon can always get that kickback. So yeah, it's going to, like, the future is going to change drastically, and you just got to be ready for it.
So much that still need to take their place in the NFT space, and as these categories do, a team like Veve has the opportunity of adding them on the platform. But I think a really big difference here to note too is that Veve does not have the same logistical issues that Amazon has, right? So Amazon has to figure out their whole supply chain, fulfillment centers, delivery processes, and things like that, whereas a majority of Veve's business operations are online. All right, guys, that concludes episode 8. All
right, y'all. So this was an amazing video. I'm going to leave it linked down below in the description as always. definitely a great channel here, man. I love the content. Let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. Definitely leave your thoughts, your opinions, and all that, man. But yeah, we're gonna end it. Be sure to drop that thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and I will catch you all on the next one. Peace out, Joe.